came to win, I don't mean to offend. The greatest on the mic, mightiest with the pen. Losing never been a choice, but a line is the same. Ascending, word bending, birds, birthed in the gym. Akin to the best, never aiming for less. Opposition so foul, got me calling for rest. Who's next to get bested? Mind, soul, and flesh is antithesis of mess. It's the pressure so clean. Hold on, you better catch a God throwing blessings. Dreams manifest, did you get what I mean? God always had a plan, he created for me.
Welcome to her house. Welcome to my house. She's not.
How you doing? How your family doing?
My family doing good. How your family doing?
We're doing well.
Well, we are here. We're out there. We want to make sure that, we thank people for following, for liking,
Absolutely.
for commenting, for being on this journey with us and coming along with the ride and just learning who we are, learning who you are, and learning who we all are together right here, right up in here right now. So, Michelle, so we're going to jump right in today. What did we talk about last week? So let's go set the stage for what we're going to talk about this week.
Yeah, so we talked a lot about setting boundaries, honoring those boundaries, and the boundaries that we set that we don't honor are not boundaries at all. We talked about making sure that our words align with our behavior, because the moment that we step over that boundary and let someone in that should not have access, ouch. Okay, so there's consequences for that we have to deal with. And so today we're going to talk about actually a problem that some of us really we have naturally, because we want people to like us. We want to be, we just want to be liked. That's a part of our human DNA to connect and feel liked. But when that becomes a problem and we're doing things for others or doing for others to keep the peace, the things that don't necessarily align with who we say we want to be, or we jump into this chameleon type of phase where I'm one way with you, I'm one way over here. How authentic are we really being? And is that damaging to our character and to our integrity and to actually to the future that we say we want to create? So that's where we're at.
Well, I used to be that kind of a person where I used to be a people pleaser. I wanted to be like, can we all just get along? And I would do anything to promote that peace. Even at the expense, or I should say, even especially at the expense of myself. If I could lay down on my sword and take the place of your pain or put myself in that situation that I found a person in, I was all about that life. But I thought it was a superpower, to be honest, for years. And I thought, if the Lord saw me wanting to change places with somebody because I could take it, or because I know the Lord's going to bless me through it, he may not bless them through it, or they may not be strong enough, I could change places with them. And I used to do that. And it was funny. I used to ask the Lord, Lord, why don't you let me have that pain? Let me have that from them. And it would feel in my mind like it would take place. And it would be better and wouldn't stay resident with me long. And over the time, I realized that was a foolish thing to really do, because I don't need to take on the problems and troubles of someone else. I've got enough troubles in my own life right now to add something that doesn't belong to me, that's something what wasn't in my bloodline, something that wasn't in my DNA. So that was a tough thing to do, and I had to eventually realize I cannot and should not do that anymore in my life, mentally and just emotionally.
Or physically.
And physically, got better.
So as you were talking, I was thinking about, number one, there's a part of that that's really beautiful. And not that we should be taking on people's drama. We talked about that last week also, like in one of our past episodes, about not taking on people's stuff, and how I was saying, I'm giving people their stuff back. I'm not doing that. I'm not managing your expectations or managing your relationships. I can only do that for me. But the part that I heard a little differently in the way that you described the taking on, I thought about my role as a coach. And sometimes I'm there to help ease or lessen that load or that burden by being a listening ear, right? And then in our faith, we talk about being intercessors sometimes. And how, when you described your role in asking to be a witness to this person's experience and to this person's journey, I view that differently as a part of empathy and compassion and love and giving to our brother or our sister
Mm,
in their time of need, and being a vessel that is willing to be used to help them navigate through that. And so now I'm seeing that as really a even a finer line to walk is, when is that what we are called to do, the X that we're supposed to be on, to
yeah,
share that load, to share that burden, and the difference between when we're putting ourselves in a situation
yeah,
that really is none of our business, or really is a relationship we shouldn't be in, or doing that particular thing in that relationship. And so that brings me to accommodating,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Or over accommodating,
yep,
for that matter.
yeah. We have that point on there. I love that.
Oh, you're right. I beat you.
Yeah, got it right there. I didn't want to click on a you click at the same time and it pop and go back off. I was like, nope, she'll find it. Because, and I love that point that we brought when we were doing our pre-show meeting.
Mhm,
I appreciate the
mhm,
feedback that
mhm,
people want to provide, but I
mhm,
don't have to accommodate or make the change or follow or
mhm,
do all of that feedback. Because I know we talked in previous shows where sometimes the people who may be like us, or maybe people pleasers, or maybe accommodating those who really want to keep the peace, we'll hear all this feedback. Oh, your hair should be long, your hair should be short, your hair should be blonde, your hair
mhm,
should be red, your
mhm.
hair should be whatever. You should dress this way, or you're too
Yeah.
thin, you're too fat, and
Ooh.
it put us on this emotional roller coaster where at some point we've got to be where we are. We got to get on the X that's for us, not these a bunch
Yeah.
of X's that everybody else is trying to put out for us. Because if we start trying to get on everyone's X, it becomes a big
Mm,
blob and we don't
mhm.
know really where to stand and we're lost
Who we are,
in
right?
life as to where to stand and where to be. And I've been there not knowing
Mhm,
who to be, because complete transparency, when Sandy died, those who were just joining, who is Sandy? Well, Sandy's my late wife. She's been gone a
mhm,
decade now. When she
mhm,
died, I started to ask myself specifically, who am I now? Because I was caught on that thing where two become one, and now I'm
mhm.
one. My two is
Right.
gone. That means half of me is gone, or that half of that relationship
Mhm,
is gone. I didn't know what I was. And so many people were saying, oh, yeah, you're Sandy's husband. I had
mhm,
lost my name along the way.
mm,
So
mhm,
I had to go on a thing and say, what? I want my name back. I don't want to be known as Sandy's husband, Carlisle. I
mhm,
was born Craig Christopher Carlisle, and my
mhm.
signature on my government name is Craig C with the dot Carlisle. I want all of that back. Nowhere did it
Mama
say,
call him Clay.
you know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? And
yeah.
nowhere did it say Sandy's husband on any legal document.
Right.
So if I was, like you had mentioned before, if we get out of alignment and we
Mhm,
start living lives that are illegal, that are outside of a court experience, that are
mhm,
outside of, I'll preface it. We need not court experience, that the courts of heaven where people, where the enemy is accusing us. We start
mhm,
doing those kind of things
mhm,
that doesn't do anything to justify our right position of standing with God. There's
mhm,
no defense for what happens to us then, because like you just mentioned, sometimes we place ourselves there. We actually
mhm,
walked over. I don't know, your dad's in construction, so this analogy I think is gonna land with you. When he would do work, or other construction would do work, they go out there with their orange spray paint cans, and they'll
Yeah,
mark the spots where
yeah,
digging is supposed to be, or where posts are
yeah.
supposed to be, or where work is supposed to be done, so we understand. So the workers who
Mhm,
don't read the plans, the workers who aren't privy to
mhm,
the long range goal, they
mhm,
know that, look, just go over there and dig on the X. Go over there and put that on the X. Go put on that line.
mhm.
Only follow the yellow brick road, follow the orange line, and be done. Don't do nothing more, nothing less.
Nothing less.
And
Yeah.
we've got to be able to do things that are right, following
Mhm,
these X's, following these
mhm,
lines. But so many times, God doesn't put it out there like this. He'll put us on a
mhm.
path, and we'll go put an X out there. He said, that's not where I told you to stand. I didn't tell you to go build an altar there. I just told you to go there. you know.
Yeah. Yeah. What they talk about the children of Israel was supposed to be, a several day journey, several days journey. And because they didn't listen, or they thought that they had a better way,
Yeah.
they roamed around in that wilderness for 40 years. 40 years and doing the same thing, seeing the same stuff season after season. Oh yeah, I remember that, and there was a point in my life, one of the exes that I needed to get off of was, healing from my divorces and the relationships that I put myself in, knowing that it should have been a couple of days journey.
Sure.
It should have been a moment in time, a friendship at best, but
At
definitely
best.
not a marriage. And so the things that I started to change about myself
Mm-hmm.
in those relationships were sometimes the way that I dressed. Now, I've never been what I would consider a provocative or a risque dresser. I always tended to be considerably conservative, though, in my 20s, I was like 36, 25, 36, trying to get back there, whatever. However, I still didn't, when in a relationship, it was important to me that the person that I was with knew that I was with them, and that when I dressed up, I was dressing up. At that time, I was dressing up for them so that they would feel comfortable with me being who I am, or who I thought I was supposed to be in that particular relationship. And so as I realized, oh, I want to cut my hair, or I want to get braids, or I want to dye my hair, and that didn't align to the image that my my husband at the time and his family had, or husbands at the time, relationship at that time, that didn't match their image of their daughter-in-law, or it didn't match the image of what my husband wanted, then I found myself suppressing what I would say like the best parts of me, which is expression through my personality and how I was growing and wanting to see myself. So fast forward, my husband and I, Big Daddy Steve Knight, will be celebrating 11 years of marriage this month on the 20th of October. And how a few years ago, when I was like, I want to get my nose pierced, I want to, cut my hair. So I shaved the side of my hair, and my beautician was like, yes, girl, so now I have this signature look for branding, but it's because it's what I want. And he was in alignment with what I wanted. Therefore, I didn't have to pretend or over accommodate. And I find myself even asking him sometimes, does this look okay? But he says a lot, like a lot of times what you and I were talking about. Well, how do you feel in it? If you feel comfortable in it, you look great to me. So then it goes right back to me being comfortable, having confidence in the way that I present myself, in a way that I don't go to the store in what are these that I'm wearing right now, slides. I don't do that. And I don't do that because I think I'm better, or I'm something. I don't want to look like that in the store. I don't go to the store in pajamas. I can go without makeup. I love my freckles now. I didn't like them at first, but I love them now. So it's about embracing who we are, and allowing people to see that, and not allowing their opinion to override what we want for ourselves, and this over accommodate. I'm telling you, that's exhausting and it's tiring, and it becomes a form of manipulation when people know that they can give you their opinion and then you change who you are.
Yeah, because we give them the keys to the kingdom. We talked in previous episodes about letting folks in the gate into your property, where whether or not we put a lock on that gate or not, some people just think, well, I'm gonna go try the door anyway, because there's no way in the world she would lock me out, or he would lock me out. I'm entitled to smooth up in there. How do you say, okay, I can use this word because it's in the Bible, right? Everybody has, like assholes. That the hole was in the Bible, so we use asses.
A money hole.
A money holes. Then it's just like opinions. Everybody's got one. So the truth is, we don't have to give our opinion to everybody. So those who are giving it are really the ones that are with the responsibility of, hey, should you have spoken out of turn? Was it your turn to speak? Did you have that legal right to speak? Were you given that permission inside that person's boundary to speak? And the silly part, though, is those who can't hold their water. It's not really what you say to someone that matters and leaves the largest impact. It's how you say it.
Mm-hmm.
And especially parents. My mom had it bad where she says
Really?
yeah, she
Don't
was
be
like,
talking
I'm the
about my
mom.
Aunt Eunice.
Oh, I'm trying to tell you the truth because we lived inside
Okay.
the perimeters of
All
that
right.
wall. She may have
Yeah.
been all, sunny and roses on the outside, but she was
I can
guns
say the
a-blazing
same
on
thing
the inside.
about Mary Page. Don't get it twisted.
I know.
Yes, I understand.
Yeah. So she would be like, her response to me one day was, I used to tell her, man, why you say that this way? Because when she and I had a real nasty fallout as I got to teen years, a lot of her side of me started coming out. It's like, look, if you're going to say
Mm-hmm.
that to me that way, I'm going to say it right back so you understand how that feels. I obviously wasn't living in the house at that time. I had my own home. I could do whatever I want. So there's no fear of getting kicked out. And she told me, she goes, I am your mother. I birthed you. I could say anything I wanted to. And she used those fancy words. And I was like,
She did. Aunt Eunice.
oh my gosh. She used every last one that I knew of. I knew she knew was like two. So it was like two. So
That's
um
right.
only two she knew was those who was for the super spiritual Pentecostals. It was GD is what she used. There was only two that she knew.
Uh-huh.
So she
Uh-huh.
said that to me, and I was still shocked that she used them in a sentence properly with the proper inflection. She said it with her chest. So
Mm.
I was like, and I told her, Mom, just because you're my mom doesn't give you the right to say things that way to me, or to anybody. And it doesn't. But once we lose our perspective on the situation and lose our ability to read the room in a relationship,
Mm-hmm.
then we then have problem with how we say things. And I think
Yes.
those hurt the most. And so as a father, I've never wanted to do that to my kids. I have done it because I've lost my cool. But every
Mm.
single time that I've done it, I promise you on the lives of every one of my children, I knew exactly not to do it when it was coming. And I
Mm-hmm.
knew why. But every time I chose to do it, there was always a larger problem I had to then go back and clean up afterwards. That was totally
Mm-hmm.
unnecessary. That I just held my water, shut my mouth, and gone on.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So this came up for me, and people will see this later today. So a lot of times the conflicts we have with others is because we're seeing the conflict or struggle within ourselves.
Yeah.
So mirroring flaws.
Yeah.
And I think about this in relationships that I've had. I think I see this one more in my leadership and corporate relationships.
Mhm.
Um, and the difference between those relationships and my familial relationships, sometimes I see this with my kids too. That's why it came up, because you were saying your mom, she was seeing a part of herself in you,
Mhm.
right? In
Mhm.
your behavior, your response. And so are we behaving, are the things that we're doing? Oh, here's the other one, Craig. This is, it's all coming together now. It's I don't know what time it is where you are. It's not that early here. But these last couple of
It's
days,
time without coffee. It's really early.
these things, um is it what you're doing or who you are. I find myself in my familial love relationships, um hoping or depending on the love that they have for me is going to override or overshadow the thing that I did, because they know that that's not really me. But in the workplace, I hadn't been as uh forgiving, and didn't feel like I deserved forgiveness, because there was no love there.
Right.
There was no
No
love there. So
connection.
it was like, I'm the leader, and not that I ruled like that, because I'm a very compassionate person, but I'm the leader. And so I'm asking your opinion. I want you to have input. I want to value and appreciate your perspective. But going back to what you said, I don't have to accommodate that if it doesn't align with what we're doing over here. And
Yeah.
so sometimes when people would still be fighting, I use Caitlin, my mini me, our 9-year-old, as an example. When she's asking me, what's the agenda, what are we doing, how is this plan going to go, she's mirroring me.
Yeah.
And so I'm seeing how difficult that might be in a workplace situation.
Sure.
Because I have a plan, and my plan is that I want to honor the entire process,
Mhm.
without compromising anything. But then when I start negotiating, now I'm not honoring me. and I'm not honoring my role either in this relationship, whether it's familial or workplace. And so, what do you think about, is this what you do or is it who you are? Because we kind of, in that case, I think that's just who I am.
Right.
And my behavior is a result of who I am. So I'm
And
acting
it
out,
is, but it
right?
is so much so that you have to really ask the question of yourself, right? Because most
Mm-hmm,
people aren't asking that really.
mm-hmm,
Because when initially we thought of this, we were asking someone else, "Hey, is what you're doing really right now who you are, or
right,
is it just what you do? I mean, do you like to smoke,
right.
or are you just a smoker?" You know what I'm saying? And
Or
there's a
you're a
difference,
social smoker, right?
right?
Or
Because
depending on the circumstance, smoker. Yeah.
exactly. So it's a difference. I mean, I was like, "What do you mean about smoking?" So I was watching this thing about what Snoop Dogg was on there, and somebody
Uh-huh.
asked Snoop, "Did you ever come across some time when someone outsmoke you?" And he says, oh yeah. I don't think anybody can outsmoke me. I was out somewhere with Willie Nelson, and I was higher than I'd ever been, and I was like, "What in the world?" And I just began to question everything in life and all my choices, and I had never been this high before. And I turned to
Yeah.
him and I was like, "Willie, we got to stop. We got to put this."
Uh-huh.
And he said, I realized at that point something to the effect that goes with what we are here.
Mm-hmm.
That Snoop he liked to smoke.
Mm-hmm.
Willie
But
Nelson,
Willie was a smoker.
he was a smoker.
Yes.
You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? And that's what we really have to do and ask ourselves, what if this that we're doing that may just be something that we do for the facade, for the face mask, for the pleasing, for the
Mm-hmm.
um, accommodation of other people,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
stuff that we do. Are you a drinker, or do you like to drink? And
Mm-hmm.
it's a difference. Do you wear ugly clothes, or are you just an ugly clothes wearer? You know,
Wait a minute.
you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? It's just some folk you gotta ask yourself that kind of question. Do you
It's your
have a
turn.
bad hair day, or you just got a beautician that don't know what the hell he or she are doing? It's a thing, man. I'm just telling you, it's a thing.
We're talking. I mean, but then part of that goes with people's, personalities or styles, or whatever they're trying to create.
Yeah,
There's certain things I wouldn't feel comfortable wearing or comfortable doing, but it works for somebody else. And so I
right.
think that's where that appreciation goes to.
Yeah.
We were also talking about, I had a couple of examples of people that I believe were being chameleons. And when I say being a chameleon, which we should have had that, can we spell chameleon right?
I'll do my best while you talk. I'll do my
Oh,
best.
check.
You got to be careful. Sometimes I was
Right
mid
click.
swallow. I almost drowned here on national TV. And if I did, there's only a select few people be able to call 911 and get it on time, because our episodes are recorded. So I might have been dead. You might have been coming up next week talking about, we're not here because
Public
sorry.
service announcement.
You know what I'm saying? People like, Michelle wearing black now because Craig drowned in an episode on the live. I'm sorry, my bad. So
That's terrible. Anyway, I use the term chameleon, meaning a person who is one way with me, but they're a different way with either you or themselves, right? So
yeah,
it's hard to know who they are. And some of the things that I was experiencing and what really resonated with me was that this person or these people that I felt this way about did not have their own path.
right,
So it was like whatever I said I was doing, and maybe this was just maybe it was my perception and not their reality. The way it landed with me was in competition,
mm,
and that's different from, you're inspired by the Knight&Craig show and you're like, man, I've always wanted to be on a podcast, or I always wanted to do a podcast. And then you learn and you create your own path, but the conversation that you're having is not family matters and appreciate versus accommodate. Because then it's like, why does that, if it's yours, then if it's what you're supposed to be doing, there is no conflict. There's
right,
enough space and room for everyone. Or you have a shirt line, and I said in a couple episodes ago, I've designed shirts to have branding and to have merch, for different events, and aligned with my, oh, it's over here, but it's over there.
yeah,
So I'll do
yep,
this.
yep,
The ABCs for lifelong learning are principles that were downloaded to me that I've used to brand and that I've used to connect with people and remain relevant. So if somebody else comes along with the ABCs of lifelong living, I'm like, so there's this conflict, and not just a conflict of interest. There's a conflict in the competition and the conflict within ourselves when we're not acting in accordance to the path that we're supposed to be on, and we're changing to fit a scenario to gain access or to manipulate into becoming your friend or a part of my life. And I use the word also infiltration, and as it relates to chameleons, because it's like, who are you? I've been knowing you for, good job. I've been knowing you for, 25, 6, 30 years. And I've never heard you talk about the things that you're talking about since I brought them up.
Yeah.
So it makes me wonder, who have I been friends with? Who have I been in familyship with? Who have I been associated with if you're not really who you are? Because I feel I've been consistent. And that's also different. I know I'm talking a long time, between I'm finding my path, I'm finding my voice, I'm developing, who I think I want to be in the future. And I'm on this journey, I'm on this search, I'm on this pilgrimage to discover that. That's different also, because it shows up differently with an eagerness or an excitement about being on that path versus grasping at straws to figure out what's your next move so then I can top that. Okay, I think I'm done.
No, you're good, because the points are valid. And I love the point that you had brought before, where is this who you are, or is this who you are with me? Because some folks don't know who they are. So they have to be a chameleon because to be accepted, because they've got an issue with self. They have an issue with who they are. They've got an issue with identity. And my 20-year-old is similar to that. He went through, he suffered the loss of his mom.
Right.
At some other point later, we moved from the house, and he wasn't able to go to the high school that he wanted to go to. He was very bitter and mad and angry at me. I'm sure he was bitter and mad and angry at the fact that his mother was gone. No, I don't know for his sake, is he mad at his mom or God or both? He was bitter at churches that we had been a part of and worked with and worked for. He was bitter at a lot of things. And so during all of that loss for him caused him to feel some kind of way, and he lost himself. He got down a rabbit hole that he is just now, probably almost 9 years later for him, able to see a light that wasn't a train that he wasn't afraid of, and made him come out of that hole. So it's taking people like himself and myself who may have suffered some type of trauma. So we're not going to reserve it just to loss. It's trauma-based loss of identity. So it's trauma-based identity amnesia. Is a new word, maybe a new term that we use, because we don't know who we were because we based it off of something that was taken away or something that happened to us that shook us to the very core of what we thought we were.
Yes.
Case in point, if I find out my parents were, when I was a child, I found out my parents were, I'm going to say it this way, for those who know Dr. Eunice Carlisle, I get it. Y'all going to be mad when I say this, but that's fine. You'll either die or get over it. When I find out that my parents were liars, I got upset. And when I say liars, I'm just saying, because everybody's a liar. We don't tell the truth all the time, do it, omission or commission. So when I said in this case they were liars, they preached and used the Bible verse that I believe in, that you can do all things through Christ who gives you strength, not do all things through our parents, through your neighbor, through your best friend, through the TV, through social media. No, I can do all things through Christ that gives me strength. So when I began to want to do some of those I didn't have a boundary. I didn't have a box or parentheses around it. It's in all, 3 little letters. They told me, no, you can't do that in our house. Carlisles don't do this. Carlisles don't do that. And I was like, what the hell? The Bible said, and those who are the spiritual, hell's in the Bible too, so let's not trip.
You're right.
And hell. So I was then confused. I was like, so I began to question everything else that they taught me. So I was frustrated. So I had to then go through and find an identity for me that's based on what my relationship with God was and what I felt I should be doing, not based on what someone else told me, whether it be my parents or finding other pastors or teachers or confidants that I found to be lacking. And I honestly, found had been putting people on pedestals and
I was,
shelves and steps and
yes, yes,
and places like the thing over my shoulder where I put
yeah,
things. Sorry, I put the finger there. Things that I put in high regard, right? Where I go
yeah,
and pick them up that were higher than me. That was
yes,
a point in my life where the Lord reminded me that everybody is on the same floor with you. Their feet are on the same ground that
mhm,
you are. And
mhm,
so that when they fall, so when they do something wrong or they do something that disappoints me, that doesn't meet my high, lofty standard, they
mhm,
fall quicker and from a
mhm,
lower level than
mhm,
falling from this gracious high pedestal or high mountain that
mhm.
I put them on. They didn't
Right.
ask. Sometimes people ask to be there because they go build it themselves and they go stand on it,
Yes.
right? But
Create
when
a
you
ladder.
right, but for
Yeah.
some folk, we need to make sure we leave all of our gods and goddesses and all of our mentors and people that we respect, leave them on the floor with us. So when they make a mistake and fall, it's a quicker way to the ground for them. And maybe we are one of the ones that help pick them up. Who knows?
You said a lot. First of all, you call my Uncle Johnny and my Aunt Eunice liars, and I get it. I get it.
Yeah,
There is a thing about um, kids,
yeah,
now adults,
yeah,
but kids and the journey to accepting our parents
yeah,
as humans first,
yeah,
as a man and a woman first.
yeah.
And that's difficult because for the first, I'm gonna say at least 14 years, you said you started, getting into trouble a little bit with your mouth. I know why Auntie Eunice wanted to slap you, um, because of your mouth. And so,
On that.
because you were not a perfect child, even though you said that last episode, none of us were. Um, but you're right, and we have this thing. We even have this thing with our kids. We might be more open than our parents were with us,
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah,
However, there is still an element of protection and age appropriate protection that sounds like and looks like lying,
hmm,
that feels like lying, because we're discovering the truth through our own lived experiences outside of what they have been willing or vulnerable or having the capacity to share about their lives. So that does feel a lot like lying because a piece of it is omission, right? And that was my thing. It was like, I didn't lie, I just didn't tell you everything, you know? And so I had to learn
yeah,
that that was still lying, and to your other point around the pedestal and remembering that we are, all of us are grounded and all of our feet are on the ground because we're human. There's still a matter of honoring wisdom that we can learn from people who have been on journeys that we are either not on, or a journey that we are currently on. And
yeah,
if we can honor that roadblock sign when they're talking, sometimes it does not come across as a roadblock of help. Sometimes it comes across, for me in my parental relationship with my
man,
mom, it
yeah,
sounds more like criticism or a lack of understanding, or she's trying to teach me something that she's already taught me. And I'm like, I already got that. I'm asking you this question, or we've already had this conversation about X, Y, and Z. So I'm not looking to be retrained. I'm looking to understand your perspective based on our mutual
hmm,
understanding of what we're both experiencing, right? And so that change in the relationship and the conversation that must change as well has to be an awareness, as you said in prior times, the responsibility of the person who recognizes that it's
hmm,
different, and then communicating that, which is my thing, communicating to that other person, hey, let's start from here because this is where we actually are.
yeah.
And so then we can move forward in a way that is healthy and actually be on the same page. Nobody's on a pedestal. But I can respect that your experience is different. And now I have a different perspective to consider the next steps that I might do.
Well, the crazy part is, even at whatever age we find
Mm-hmm.
ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
we're going to experience some of these pedestal problems. I
Yeah.
just had it last night. So by the time this airs, last night's going to be several months ago. But I was at a game last night,
Mm-hmm.
and we talked about the Webbs before.
Yes.
My dad's and mom's best friends are this husband and wife duo.
Yeah. Beautiful people.
Beautiful people.
Mm-hmm.
I sat next to one of their sons, that
Mhm.
was always older than me, but wasn't a lot older than me. But as a kid, everybody seems older. And when I
Yeah,
say
yeah,
kid, I'm talking like elementary school, 5, 6, 7, 8.
yeah,
Everybody seems older. Everybody
yeah.
seems taller. The whole world seems bigger. The houses we lived in looked ginormous
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
of our perspective. And
Yes.
that's one thing we have to understand is as we grow, our perspective should also grow, and our perspective should outgrow us into adulthood and beyond. I
Mm.
sat next to this man, and I remember his son, Nate, lives down the block. You remember
Mhm.
Nate for the bowling alley, as we know him.
Yep.
Nate's a
Mhm.
good friend of
Mhm.
ours. Nate's Mark's son.
Mhm.
Nate says, "Hey, my dad's sitting over there. Why don't you go say hello?" Went and
Mhm.
sat by him. I stood up. I looked a couple times. Michelle looked down the aisle. I'm looking for the kid, the dude used to see as a kid.
Yes,
He was
yes, yes,
very fair skinned, chubby
yes,
brown cheeks, full of
yes,
life. I thought he was always so tall, even though his dad was 6. I thought he was 6 foot. Maybe he wasn't. To me, everybody was ginormous, right? I'm 6 foot now. I'm thinking everybody was that same perspective as a
yeah,
kid. Look it up.
yeah.
Shella took everything I had. I said, Nate, where? He says, he's right there. He's the only black guy at the end, same aisle you on with the hoodie on. It was easy
Yeah,
at the school I was at because we was the only black folk at the game. Okay,
right.
so it was a field hockey game, so it makes sense, right? Wasn't basketball, wasn't football.
Stop it.
I
Stop it.
walked down there.
Our daughter played field hockey.
I walked down there, Shell, and the dude I said hello to, I was traumatized. That was not the same man that in my mind I
Mhm.
remember when I was 4, 5, and 6. And there was nothing wrong. It was just he had lost weight, he had aged, he is,
Mhm.
we've all come through some form of medical, trauma at some point, no matter if it was great or
Mhm.
small. My
Mhm. Mhm.
perspective of who that man was when I was elementary school and younger
Mhm.
was not the same man that sat there next to me.
Mhm.
And I was almost in tears because
Mhm.
I had realized how much of a disconnection there had been
Mm. Mhm.
in the
Mhm.
in what used to be a family that we saw at least 3 times a month
Yeah.
to 40 years at least gone by.
Mhm.
And then I've seen him twice in 2 years.
Yeah.
And so I ramble on this way to say is we're dealing with people and finding our barriers and understanding who we are and learning who we are. We have to still stay connected to those things that add value to us.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
we got to sometimes reevaluate what value look like. We talked about a week or
Mhm.
so ago about
Value versus
value
worth.
or
Yeah.
worth.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I think at some point when we've taken the worth off of our value,
Mm.
and
Mhm.
sometimes we take the worth off of someone else's value, and then you come back after someone else has found value in our worth, in their worth, I should say.
Mhm.
Another
Mhm.
man's trash is another man's treasure,
Treasure.
and they
Yeah.
put something else up on that. Sorry, I thought I did it right. Up on that shelf, and go, man,
Uh-huh.
I used to have a thing like that as a kid. No, no, that was that thing
Right.
that you threw away
Yeah.
that I found value in, and it's like, man, had I spent a little bit more time seeking out the value and put a larger worth on it,
Mhm.
I'd have been a much better person because
Mhm.
now he's older.
Mhm.
His parents are even older.
Mhm.
My parents are gone.
Right.
I could have spent a lot more time getting to know his parents. Not that they would
Mhm.
have taken the place of mine,
Right.
but it could have been more value added to my life from their wisdom
Mhm.
than I'll never get.
The cool thing is, again, a lot there. Let me start with this. Relationships must be intentional. If
Yeah.
you're going to be in relationship with anyone,
Mhm.
whether it's your siblings, I think I shared before, I'm one of 13 kids, right? And I'm at the baby group. So I have older siblings that are old enough to be my parents, and I have nieces and nephews that are older than I am. And so, and now we have great nieces and nephews. We have great nieces and nephews. I think we just have great. Uh, no, I have three great. I have a niece who has a daughter And that would be my great niece. And then her daughter, my great niece, has 2 kids. So I'm a great aunt,
Yeah.
and I'm in my 40s. I don't know. I barely have a relationship with my niece, meaning there's no issue. She lives in another state, has her own family. There's no issue, but we come together maybe, well, now that she's been in Texas, we're coming together after technically 10 years
Yeah.
this Christmas.
Yeah.
We text, we follow each other on Facebook. I'm seeing their lives played out, but I don't talk to her every single day.
Right.
Again, no issue, but the relationship has to be intentional. I don't talk to my great niece, and I know the names of my great nephews, but I don't have a relationship with them. And sometimes people think because we're family, a relationship should be a certain way. That might be true if
Yeah.
that's the way that you were raised, if that's the way that you were taught. And we were taught family is important, but there was also some division in our family because of the way our family came together as a blended family. I'm not going to say it right, and I'm not saying my dad was a Rolling Stone or my mom was, not a nice woman. I'm saying my dad was married twice, and so there was a group and a generation of kids from that group. He married my mom, who did not have children at the time, but was raising her nieces and nephews. So that's another group of kids from another woman, right? That my mom was raising. Then once my mom and dad got married, they had me and my brother. And then we have brothers and sisters that are cousins that were adopted so there is a lot of mamas and daddies and relationships happening there. And some of those relationships cause division that was unnecessary because of lack of understanding and perspective.
Yeah.
And so the intentionality has to come from the person who recognizes it, which I did many, many years ago. And there was some forgiving that had to come about of that as well, because I didn't want to feel uncomfortable in the presence of my sisters, in the presence of my family, in the presence of my cousins. No matter what the distance is, does not mean that there has to be an issue to that distance.
Right.
And so I wanted to honor who I am and who I have become and who I continue to become, and maintain that authenticity without being the chameleon and being one way here and one way, different way, and honoring the relationship that I believe is possible, but it takes work. But I'll tell you this, I'm not going to be in your presence and feel like I'm not myself. I'm not going to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that makes sense
too. Yeah. You had an example of this too when we were talking, feeling some kind of way.
Yeah. It's just, it makes sense. We were all involved in a situation a few weeks ago where we were all together and things just didn't go as planned, and everybody that came to an event didn't stay around. And it was challenging just to kind of go through and say, that's sad that it came to that. Right. But we all have to ask ourselves when we're in midst of situations. I mean, I've had people come to my house who I have been not in communication with, not in community with for years because of something that they did specifically to me, stole money from my family, from my kids. And I don't like that. And it was a personal battle that I decided to champion in defense of my kids, in defense of my family. But at the same time, these people are related to us. And so I chose to not build a barrier and keep my kids behind it from this person, because they didn't treat my children badly physically.
Right.
But what was done was something that the kids didn't even know what happened till years later. So I chose not to hold that over them and keep them from their family for that error in judgment. But I think the case really is we make choices of how to deal and how to respond and who to respond to, what to say and how to say it. It's all our choice. And I really feel that some of us really feel that we're entitled. Our sense of entitlement allows us or gives us the grace to say things because we think that you'll either die or get over it, or you're just accepted because of who I am, or you wronged me so I can say things out the way I want to. But we never have that ability, other than, yes, we have free will that God gave us, but The key with the free will is that we give it back to God for his glory and for his
Mhm.
use. So instead of using the seasoning of our words with grace to hopefully be able to reach our brother and regain that relationship, we're the ones digging the ditch, digging the moat wider and deeper, and reducing the drawbridge to keep those people away because they hurt us, and we think we're getting them back at them. And I used to do it a lot, but it's not the way to do things ever.
Right.
And there's so many times I wish I hadn't done it,
Mm-hmm.
but Romans 8:28 is going to cover it all. All things work together. So I needed to be out of a toxic relationship with a person, hurt person that hurt a person. And over time, time doesn't heal all things, but time does bring wisdom. It does allow you to heal. So
Process.
that's the wonderful part. If we look at a relationship that's been damaged, severed, or broken, there's a chance to create, like you said, a new relationship with that same person. No, it's not even true. I cancel those words. I'm wrong. There's a opportunity to create a new relationship with the new person that they have become, to reintroduce yourself, like Jay-Z's words. You said, please let me reintroduce myself. My name is, if we do that to people, I think it's so much better, not just for them, but for us.
So you brought up, you mentioned the revenge piece of I'm gonna get back at them. I was listening to the podcast that I listen to in the mornings, and I don't know if it's a podcast, Craig. I don't know what it is. It's like inspirational videos or whatever, compilation videos.
Sure.
And the gentleman that was speaking, I don't know who it was saying that there was a story he wanted to share with the people about one of his friends who knew that he knew that he loved his wife more than she loved him. And at some point in the relationship, he knew that she wanted a divorce, but they didn't believe in divorce, and he didn't want to divorce. And finally, something happened, infidelity, whatever it was, and he was so hurt and so broken that he was like, okay, well, I'll give you this divorce, but before I give you the divorce, I'm going to stay and I'm going to make you pay to get revenge. And so he stayed in that relationship longer than he should have, knowing what he knew, that it was a mistake that he made to marry her in the first place. Once he understood that, so he stayed. The messy divorce, what have you, and then now as he reemerging to start dating again, how he's bringing all that baggage, and there's a self-sabotaging, my words, that is happening because he is looking for the flaws in every relationship. Even if it's going well, he's presenting information or looking for those cracks in that other person to then use that as a weapon, he thinks, against them, but it's really hurting him. And so this made me think about what we were talking about, that not all attention is not good attention. We know that in media, publicity, and all those types of things, we can market and we can capitalize on a bad situation or a good situation, depending on what it is. But in this case, where you're dealing with real life, and it's not about promoting a movie or promoting an award or promoting something that it destroys relationships, then the way that we behave and the way that we act should not be out of a place of revenge. I'm gonna get this person back, because that person, number one, has a choice to get you first. Number two is you're really hurting yourself, and you're limiting yourself to by negotiating with yourself in a negative sense, and you're compromising your future. So why do that?
It's the sad part of who we are as men, as people, that chose to make a choice because out of just pure selfishness. We chose to say the things that hurt. We chose to eat the food that we shouldn't have eaten. We chose to be disobedient. I think we've talked before. When you tell a child or you tell a person, don't do something, don't date so-and-so, don't go there, don't go. It's the first thing that our minds want to go to, is to be defiant, because that's who we are because that's who we
Mhm.
became. So let's make sure we
Mhm.
clarify. We were not created to be defined. We were created to
Mhm.
be perfect, right? But because of our disobedience, we became flawed. And our
Mhm.
flaw, our fallen mindset is to always rebel against leadership, rebel against the truth,
Mhm.
rage against the machine. At our
Mhm.
first thought, though it may be quick for some or quiet for others or loud for some, is to
Mhm.
always do the first thing that we know we're not supposed to do because it makes us feel like I got you. I'll do whatever I want to because it's my life, you know? So
The consequences.
if we ever, well, I should say, I think it was someone I was just talking to this last night. I think we were sharing that time with God, or for those who don't believe in God, if you whatever, time spent trying to meditate and find out a better you,
Mhm.
time spent, or should say intentional time, intentional moments, intentionality over time is wisdom,
Mhm.
right? And it's
Yeah.
experience that we're looking for. And so if we do that, become intentional to find the right ways, and we do that over time, we're going to become wise and have a better understanding of, hey, when this mindset comes,
Mhm.
if I do this, the
Mhm.
outcome is going to be something closer to that.
Mhm.
And if we continue to do that, our lives are going to be so much better and so much
Mhm.
richer. But for many of us, it takes that time of making those mistakes, hurting people, ruining people's lives, ruining their
Mhm.
experiences, damaging who we are, our name and reputation,
Mhm.
walking around a blessing for 40 years or so before we really get it.
Mhm.
Some of us need to take that 12-mile walk. And it's funny, you reminded me and encouraged me to do, not, you didn't know you encouraged me, but you've reminded me of something I had said with my mouth and I never did it. I talked about it, but I wasn't, I
Mhm.
didn't be about it. I wanted
Mhm.
to take my sons on a 12-mile walk
Mm.
to make them understand and feel, what did the children of Israel go through and
Mm.
what should it have taken them to get there? And I want us
Mhm.
to take our puppies too, because they would have had all their stuff.
Yeah.
Have them take a backpack. Maybe we have water and snacks inside, maybe a change of
Mhm.
shoes of what was required. So we would feel the discomfort of what
Mhm.
these people would have had to have been pulling all of their possessions
Mhm.
to go 12 miles.
Yeah.
And not to pull, we would be able to pull the ripcord and say, you know what, screw it, Dad, I can't do it. Just call an Uber and come get us. There
Yeah.
was no Egyptian Uber system. They're not going to call some camels come and get you in the middle of the desert. It wasn't happening.
Mhm.
But I want my sons and I to
Mhm.
understand 12 miles isn't that far.
Mm-mm.
It's not that far to get to your blessing, to get to the
Mhm.
goal.
Mhm.
We
Mhm.
just have to be able to discipline our minds
Mhm.
to settle our bodies and our emotions
Mhm.
to get to the goal.
Yeah.
And once we realize that you can do it one time,
Mhm.
doing it
Yeah.
again is easy.
Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful sentiments there. And I wanted to add to something that you were saying about the wisdom and the experience and over time. But there's an application that has to happen.
Yeah.
It's not just having the knowledge and knowing you have the knowledge, it's using the knowledge to
Yeah.
get to that goal, to
Yeah.
get to that place of the end of the 12 miles. And so the first thing I thought about that popped into my mind was like, "Ooh, I want to do that with you guys."
Yeah.
And or my family to do that with you guys.
Yeah.
And it's 6 miles out, 6 miles back, and make sure that there is a hotel nearby, so then we don't have to, whatever. So then we can make that kind of like an overnight type of a thing,
Yeah.
right? And so, but it also made me think about, I just shared with my sons this week actually. The scripture came up on my feed, and it was Proverbs. I will have to look, but the one about about the son and honoring, and the son who has wisdom, and most of it is about the son, if you will, if you read Proverbs. And I sent them a message, letting them know, sending them that scripture, and I shared with them something that was brought to my attention during their biological father's addiction. and recovery. And so during that time, he was a part of this Christian group, and they started this Proverbs Club. And so Proverbs Club is reading a chapter of Proverbs every single day for 31 days, and speaks to, the change in behavior and change in patterns that if when you start this new thing, that's why action is so important. You can't just say it, you got to be about it, you got to do it. It has to mean something to you, or else it won't stick.
Right.
So I was telling them, for the month of November, we should start that. We should start that journey together of reading the word every single day, because I'm telling you, no matter how your day ends, when you start your day with the beauty of affirming what you want your day to be, affirming what your life is, even if you don't see it right now, that millionaire status, that your family is whole, your children are this, or your career is whatever it is that you have, or you want more wisdom, you have to affirm those things and speak those things into existence, because it won't just happen by you thinking. It has to come out of your mouth, and the action and behavior has to align. And so that's what I wanted this next season. And I've heard before too, how you end a year is how you're like blessing, and how you want your new year to begin. So I thought, what a better way to show gratitude and going into the season of Thanksgiving and this season of new beginnings, with gift giving and Christmas and celebrating however you celebrate, or just acknowledging that another year is coming to an end and that you're alive. And then bridging that into your new year. Man, how else? I can't think of a better way to do that. And so I'm excited about your journey. I'm excited that if we get to be a part of that experience, what that will do for even our kids and bonding them, and by creating this memory and this experience, what it will do for us naturally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, all of those things combined. So kudos to you, Dad.
Hey, and then one thing, as we're heading down to close in this episode, there's the books that came out years ago talking about the power of positive thinking, and I'm manifesting things by saying just because I'm thinking I can do it. In the word, the Bible doesn't even talk about that. It hits on everything that you just said. You have to speak life. In the Bible section, when those guy was talking about, the section talking about raising those dry bones, the scripture doesn't say think about those bones and make them rise. It says speak to them. There's power, there's life or death in the power of our tongues, not in our thoughts. There's toxicity and encouragement in our thoughts, yes. But if you don't speak one way or the other, or if you do speak one way or the other, you're gonna get, what does it talk about? Where you're gonna rejoice and you're gonna eat of those delights. So if you speak in death or speaking negatively, you're gonna relish in those kind of delights of negativity in your life. If you're gonna speak life, and your actions are following that, you're going to relish and live in those kind of blessings based on what we say and speak into existence. So definitely we got to watch our mouths, watch our tongues, and hopefully definitely y'all keep watching us and follow us on social media. We are, and those by the time you're watching this, our social media is up. Follow us and like us on Instagram, Facebook, all of the social medias. Email us here with your comments, your show topics, and if you even wanted to be a guest at certain point, come and join us with this journey that we're on. She's Dr. Michelle Knight. I'm Craig. This is Knight&Craig.
Absolutely. Thank you. Enjoy.
I came to win, I don't mean to offend. The greatest on the mic, mighty is with the pen. Losing never been a choice, but a line is the same. Ascending word, bending verse, birthed in the gym. Akin to the best, never aiming for less. Opposition so foul, got me calling for rest. Who's next to get bested? Mind, soul, and flesh is antithesis of mess. It's the verses so clean. Go long, better catch a God throwing blessings. Dreams manifest, did you get what I mean? God always had a plan, he created for me. Success only means that I did what he seen. Got the game and the fans locked in like a